What do you think that we need to know about the 7.5 states that are likely going to determine this election?
You probably don't want to turn on a TV in one of those states from about now onward. You'll literally see, I spent a fair amount
Hammered,
of time in Las
hammered, hammered,
Vegas.
hammered.
Yeah, you'll see every single commercial is a campaign commercial by the time you get into September, October, November. But yeah, obviously, look, if you are interested in the outcome of the election, I think it's an important election, then vote, donate. By the way, you might want to donate not to Trump or Harris, who have lots of money, but to your favorite down ballot candidates. Things like state Supreme Court races matter a lot and get far less attention, or even city council and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, some people enjoy like the scoreboard watching element of elections where they like seeing the numbers go up and down. But you're not going to really learn anything new from the polls between now and November. Not that you should read my newsletter, but it's very likely to be close. We have a very good idea of which states are likely to be most important. And if you're in one of those states, then you should probably vote.
Which are those states?
So Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan are like the northern Midwestern group. And then Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina.
I'm surprised by Nevada. I have to admit that I'm a total like noob to this. This is my first election being in the US. I'm not used to this sort of set of insights. If you gave me most of those states except for Nevada on a map, I wouldn't be able to put a pin on them. But it surprises me that Nevada would have been one of those. That being a swing state is kind of culturally surprising to me.
Yeah, so if you go to Nevada and spend time in the casino settings there, you'll see why it's a swing state, because you have this very working class workforce that is often people who are minorities, Hispanic, Asian, Black. It's a diverse workforce, a diverse working class workforce, casino industry. And that's the group that has shifted more toward Trump. If Democrats are relying on these like college educated knowledge sector workers, that's not the typical blackjack dealer, although it does require quite a bit of skill, frankly. That's not the typical person working in food service at a big resort or room service in a big resort in Las Vegas. So that population has been risky for Democrats.
Would a viable third option ever be able to get in? We saw RFK Jr. give it as good of a crack, I think, as could have been expected this year, or is this essentially just impossible right now?
I don't think it's impossible, but the issue is that the parties are pretty clever at adapting to the changing political tides, right? So like in some ways, Donald Trump was like a third party candidate. He disagreed in 2016 with George Bush and Mitt Romney and criticized John McCain and was moving toward a much more culturally conservative, but fiscally maybe less conservative actually policy than you had like under Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney, for example, or Bernie Sanders, who is technically an independent. He ran for the Democratic nomination and he produced change on things like the minimum wage and stuff like that. But so I think the risk is that third party votes get co-opted by the two major parties.
Yeah, that is, it's interesting to consider Trump as kind of like an outside option previously. This is what people are saying when they're shouting about drain the swamp and he's not one of the globalist elite lizard people, whatever. This is what it's kind of how they see him, right?
Yeah. And, keep in mind that there was a whole GOP autopsy. Hey, they have to move to the center on immigration. And he had the foresight, I guess, to kind of zig where other people zagged. And whatever else you say about Trump, he's a former real estate guy. And so he can kind of like maybe has some sixth sense for when there's a underpriced piece of political real estate somewhere.
Yeah. Why did the polls lowball Trump in the past? Is there a risk of that happening again?
There's a risk. In fact, there's probably a risk of both directions. In 2022, you had polls underestimate Democrats in some big races. In 2012, they underestimated Obama a little bit. So pollsters offer two basic excuses. And, I say excuses because how valid they are, I think the pollsters would love to have unbiased results, but it's tricky. One problem is that people who are more politically engaged and college educated are more likely to respond to polls and also more likely to be Democrats. Your typical MSNBC watching New York Times, whatever, Starbucks drinking liberal is pretty likely to respond to a poll, but we'll vote Democrat in November. That's one issue. There were also issues in 2020 potentially related to COVID, where Democrats were much more likely to socially distance. So they're sitting around without much to do. And, I probably made more phone calls during COVID than I ever have in my life, right? So Democrats were more likely to respond to surveys during COVID, and that may have caused issues in 2020. But yeah, these are legitimate reasons to worry. The reason why I would say maybe I'd expect less of a polling error this year is just because, like, what the polls are saying is that it's 50-50, which is like a very reasonable suggestion, I think, right? They're saying we're going to be somewhere in between 2016 and 2020, most likely. Comes down to a photo finish again, the Electoral College, and that's like not exactly going out on a limb.
Is there a social desirability thing still with Trump? I walk around my very white, very 3.5 kids and a golden retriever neighborhood here in Austin, Texas, and I see a whole host of blue signs for Harris Waltz, and I don't see a single one for Trump. Something tells me that people in $2 and $3 million houses aren't all Democrats.
I think there is some, but maybe less than people assume, for a couple of reasons. One is that Americans tend to be pretty forthcoming when you ask them in surveys, which is not true everywhere, right? In India, for example, it's just considered kind of a bad idea to share your political opinion with a random stranger, which in some ways maybe it is, right? But Americans tend to answer polls pretty honestly. The issue is more that you're not getting Trump supporters answering polls in the first place, that they're less likely to trust a news outlet that calls and says, do you want to take a survey? I would also say that the degree of social acceptability is wider now for Trump than it used to be. Certainly on Silicon Valley and in Wall Street, you have more explicit Trump support than you had 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Also in communities like younger Black men, for example, or younger Hispanic men and things like that. I think the social circle has expanded a little bit where you're allowed to say you're a Trump voter.
Over the span of about a year, I tried pretty much every greens drink that I could, trying to work out which one was best, and I came across AG1 and have stuck with it for over 3 years because it's the best. I know that you might be skeptical about taking anything that replaces food. This isn't supposed to replace food. It's just foundational nutrition. It's insurance for the days when you don't actually get what you're supposed to eat in your diet. No matter whether it's because you're stressed, because you're busy, because you're tired, it's difficult to get everything we need from our diet, no matter how hard we try. And that is why I've used AG1 every single day for over 3 years. Since 2010, they've improved the formula 52 times in the pursuit of making the highest quality functional nutrition supplement on the planet. Best of all, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not sure, you can buy it and try it every single day for 3 months. And if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. Right now, you can get a year's free supply, vitamin D3, K2, 5 free AG1 travel packs, and that 90-day money-back guarantee with your first subscription by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinkag1.com/modernwisdom. That's drinkag1.com/modernwisdom. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, I have got a selection of videos that I think you'll love, and are the best place to start right here. Go on.